It's very humbling to be here, and I feel like I've come a long way to talk about quite a modest project, but I hope that you can get something from it. So this paper examines a multifaceted project that happened over a very short period of time, developed by staff and undergraduate students at the Polytech School of Design in partnership with a local heritage tourism operator. So firstly, I'd just like to give you a little bit of background to the heritage site that was the subject of these projects, namely Ulverston House in Dunedin. So Ulverston was commissioned by David Ezekiel Thiemann, and the construction of this house was completed in 1906. David Thiemann was a very successful businessman, a wealthy man, a civic leader, and a philanthropist in Dunedin. He was a prominent figure within the Jewish community, the congregation there, and his family provided generous financial support to a number of our cultural institutions, including the Dunedin Public Art Gallery, which he helped to establish. The house itself is a grand 35-room mansion, which for its time had many innovative and modern design features, including an internal electric intercom system, and indeed it was one of the first houses in Dunedin to have electricity at all. The Thiemann family were great travellers, and this, combined with the family's importing business, saw them amass an impressive collection of European and Oriental treasures at Ulverston House. When David Thiemann died, his daughter, Dorothy, was the sole remaining member of the family. She had no children, and she remained at Ulverston until her death in 1966, and was the sole remaining heir. Her will then revealed that Ulverston House and all its contents were to be gifted to the city of Dunedin. So Ulverston was then opened to the public as a visitor attraction in 1967. And to this day the house is maintained in a manner befitting the Thiemann's wishes and remains a wonderful snapshot of this wealthy merchant family's tastes, interests, and general domestic way of life. So in many ways Ulverston House is a successful visitor attraction. Earlier this year, Ulverston was voted New Zealand's #1 landmark by the website TripAdvisor, beating far grander attractions such as Auckland's Sky Tower. However, there's certainly room to improve, and in July this year, the manager of Ulverston invited communication design students at Otago Polytechnic to be involved in developing new projects which could help promote this site and story. It was clear to all of us, after discussions, that the visitors to Ulverston occupied a fairly narrow demographic, derived significantly from visitors arriving on cruise ships and package bus tours that visit Dunedin during the summer months. Anecdotally, we learned that from staff that the tours appeal to older people, particularly women, exposing a lack of activity or engagement for mixed groups, youths and children. Furthermore, outside of this formal tour format, visitors were largely unable to engage with the Ulverston story. There's no freedom to view the interior without supervision, and the gardens, while well kept and free to visit, felt disconnected from the rich narratives to be found inside the house. So we felt that there was a missed opportunity to engage local visitors who might like to visit the gardens, but not commit to a tour of the house interior. So the proposed direction for our project was thus based on an analysis of these problems. In short, we wanted to engage young people, children, and locals, as well as visitors with Ulverston's and Dunedin's social histories. And we wanted to do this in a new, unused space, namely the surrounding gardens. From the beginning, we wanted our students to reflect on relevant theories connecting design thinking with successful museum experiences. This began with a workshop on IDEO methods. Primarily, we wanted to steer our students away from using focus groups, which IDEO believed can lead to erroneous conclusions. IDEO instead based their research on relentless observation. We reflected also on the design of meaningful experiences, drawing on Diller and Shedroff and Ray's model of experience design. The experiential relationship we have with objects in space, a practice grounded in everyday activity, can shift recognition and meaning beyond the object of space to create meaningful and lasting memories. We considered concepts such as freedom and harmony to be at the core of what we wanted to achieve with the Alvaston House experience, because these values were in the background in terms of the current visitor experience. So drawing on these ideas, we asked our students to visit a number of local museums to observe visitor behaviours, and the goal was to analyse and compare the expected responses to objects and spaces with the actual responses to objects and spaces. What was the museum's proposed experience, and how did that hold up in reality? The outcome of this exercise were visual and textual experience maps, dissecting and recording over time the movements, behaviours and responses to contemporary museum design and space. Further to these ideas and practices, we considered some other contemporary museological thinking. Museum creator Nina Simon suggests that we can look at an image or object not for its artistic or historical significance, but for its ability to spark conversation. She defines these artifacts and experiences as social objects. Social objects are the engines of socially networked experiences, the content around which conversations happen. Social objects allow people to focus their attention around a third thing rather than on each other. The idea of using museum objects and social objects doesn't separate visitors from the historic material. Rather, it lets us onto the stage to share it with the actor, the objects, and the story at hand. Our students, through their role in the project, were encouraged to see themselves as on stage too. In turn, they developed theatrical responses to the brief. The gardens of Alvaston House are public spaces, and they could be reframed by their designs, becoming both an exhibition space and a theatrical space. Visitors should be able to explore imaginatively and beyond the terms offered by the expected experience of a garden. So through our learning, we became convinced that this combination of emotional connections and social connections would be a new and relevant way to engage younger social groups with the narratives of Alvaston House that we were working with. These experiences evoked meaning with and through people, spaces and storytelling, rather than through passively consuming information. Just as the physical objects in museum context tell their stories, so too our own physicality contributes to the story and histories of the cities that we inhabit. I'd now like to give you a brief description of the design outcomes before discussing why we feel they were successful. So because of the short time frame for the entire project, about 5 weeks, we needed to engage our students quickly with the stories and narratives surrounding Alvaston House. And we began with a 48-hour research challenge. Students divided into small groups to research, imagine and write scenarios for a garden party hosted at Alvaston in 1907 for Dorothy Behrman. And here's a wonderful little excerpt from the newspaper of the time, the Otago Witness, of an actual party. A wonderful column called Take and Talk. The students identified groups of party goers, some fictional, some real, and based on their research wrote scripts for conversations that they might have. Who would these people be? What would they talk about? Why? The outcomes to this challenge showed a high level of engagement, exploration and discovery. Scenarios presented included the introduction of domestic electricity use, food production and consumption, the current political situation in Europe, and Dorothy's recently finished education at the Rodian School in Britain. And finally, the association of the Behrmans with other well-known early colonial family businesses in Dunedin. We decided early on to focus on creating this garden party experience, which could appeal to a wide audience, while another team would try to develop a secondary garden experience aimed squarely at younger children. The garden experience team decided to use and prototype their ideas using freely available augmented reality tools. It's important to note at this stage that all our prototypes were produced with a $0 budget and a 5-week time frame with no programming. So this certainly provided many challenges for our team, as AR was new to most of us. but we felt that it provided an opportunity to experiment with virtual objects as social objects, as AR is explicitly new to most people, and leveraging its novelty would be a natural conversation starter and a topic around which people can gather. The prototype we created allowed visitors to move through the garden at their own pace and experience a garden party by seeing and hearing the scenarios we had filmed and implemented in various ways and locations throughout the garden. Visitors could move in groups and talk about what they were seeing, or perhaps strike out on their own and take different routes and have a non-linear type of experience. A second prototype was designed to engage young children visiting the garden with their families. With the use of a smart device, these young visitors could participate in a toy hunt. We created a scenario where the theme and children had lost a series of toys, and present-day children could spend time finding them. These utilised small images installed throughout the garden on peaks. When the images were found and viewed with a smart device, the virtual toy appears and plays an animation. The toys themselves tell a story of the theme and family's travels, and we based the toys on actual toys the theme and children had collected from these different countries. We also extended this concept to create AR postcards for the gift shop, as a low-hanging fruit, as it were, which would display a detailed 3D model of Alderson House when viewed with a smart device. The goal, therefore, of this garden AR experiences was that visitors be socially active and physically present, on the stage with the actors, to echo Simon's words. Augmented reality, we think, provides a new and exciting way to approach object spaces and storytelling, at the same time aiming at this market which doesn't usually engage with social history. This reflects one of the reasons why our project was successful pedagogically, but also well received by the management of Alderson House, and that is that the project was designed by young people for young people. So far, as mentioned, the prototypes executed by the staff student teams have been very well received, and we feel it's been a valuable collaboration between design academics in Dunedin, design students, and the heritage group. And it contributes some insight into a positive future for social history storytelling in Dunedin that's outside of museums, drawing on both old and new technologies and relationships. Our students engaged with social history research using immersion and role-playing, techniques of theatre, filmmaking and storytelling to make sense of and share their new knowledge. This socio-technological approach to telling historical narratives started with our own learning as a tertiary design school. Here, students engaged with a variety of research strategies and design-led thinking, and through their designs and research, both inside and outside the classroom, produce new experiences in new spaces in ways that reflect ideas of object-rich theatre, value, and participation. So as this is new to us, I heard someone yesterday in the question in the keynote suggest that it was baby steps. We're working to develop a robust model for teaching interaction design in our area, and in the area of social history storytelling. We see the local museum industry benefiting too, with more graduates seeing museum exhibition design as a valid and relevant career choice. And this has actually been borne out recently by many of our graduates succeeding in this area, finding employment at museums, and gaining positions at design firms who work directly in producing museum interactives. As I talk to you, we've begun taking the AR toy hunt game to a more developed prototype and hope to have a finished application by mid-next year. We're partnered with a telecommunications company to provide a strong Wi-Fi signal throughout the gardens, and a team of dedicated senior students have been working to create more content, user interface assets, etc. To conclude, I'd like to relate a small serendipitous moment that happened during discussions with the telecommunications company. One of the characters that was written into the garden party scenario was a real person known to visit the Thiemann family. It was revealed that this was the great-aunt of the company representative we were working with. Suddenly this stranger felt a personal and material connection to the project, much as the students had done in their research, role-playing and immersion, identifying the stories and making personal associations with this historic site. Thank you.